Thank you, Chairman Mikowski, Ranking Member Cantwell, for holding this critically important hearing. I got to say, I'm tired of talking about this. I want to see action out of Congress. We need to do something. Like much of the West, Montana had a very difficult fire season. Over 300,000 acres burned. Multiple evacuations of populated communities were ordered. In fact, one firefighter from Stevensville, Montana, was the only survivor of that 4-member crew, where 3 of them lost their lives in western Washington. That was referenced twice in this hearing already. This year's fire season demonstrated the need for a strong wildfire funding solution. As a supporter of the Wildfire Disaster Funding Act, I strongly believe Congress should relieve the Forest Service of the suppression costs of fires that are truly natural disasters. But at the same time, the fire season also demonstrated the urgent need for restoration work to be done in Montana and other parts of the country. Consider, for example, the lessons of the Bear Creek fire in the Flathead National Forest. I was up at the Incident Command Center in West Glacier here when the big fires in Glacier were burning this summer. Bear Creek's not too far away. It was incredibly hot with flame lengths reaching 100 feet. As the fire progressed to the Meadow Creek trailhead, it went to a spot where we had a recently completed thinning project. However, when it hit the recently completed thinning project, guess what happened? It settled down considerably. Local Forest Service officials said the thinning project really worked. That's the good news. Now here's the bad news. The thinning project was part of the larger Spotted River project that was hamstrung by litigation for several years. According to nonpartisan research done by the Bureau of Business and Economic Research at the University of Montana, the case was in court for over 1,000 days. So instead of planning for new forest restoration projects, 18 Forest Service personnel spent nearly 2,000 hours responding to a lawsuit. Further, the study found that over 100 forest product jobs were threatened. It pointed out that the litigation delayed efforts to improve recreation access and wildlife habitat. I was chasing elk just this last weekend in Montana, and you hear both the quantitative as well as qualitative stories around when you thin the forest, it improves the habitat for the wildlife. It's quite possible the work that was upended by the litigation could have further mitigated the damage when that fierce Bear Creek fire swept through. The Forest Service ultimately prevailed in court, but the impacts of litigation against this project and many, many others are extensive and they're severe and they should not be accepted. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, let's come together and pass a wildfire funding solution as well as timber management that includes some litigation reform so we can move forward here and protect our forests, protect our jobs, and protect the lives of the men and women who fight these fires. Dr. Covington, you talked about the importance of thinning and prescribed burns. You also talk about the dangers of excessive stand densities. Do you think that providing the Forest Service with additional tools, such as expanded categorical exclusion authorities, could help the agency get substantially more restoration work done?
Yes, of course, it could. One of the problems that we've solved, I think, in a lot of the collaborative work is that when you get local people together to support a project, if you have strong local political support, you can kind of head off legal action that might otherwise stop a project. So there's the one approach that you're describing is let's have more categorical exclusions. And that obviously, if that could get through, you'd still have potential political blowback from it that could slow a project down. If you have local political support that's well organized and engaged in it, in many ways, I think that would be more robust.
Yeah, and Mr. Covington, in addition to, I think the reforms needed would include incentives for the collaborative efforts as well. It's working in Montana. The problem is the extreme environmental groups that litigate the collaborations aren't part of the collaboration. They're waiting at the courthouse to file the lawsuit once the collaboration wants to move forward.
That's right. And so it seems to me, Senator Daines, that there's just like there are variations across the landscape in fuel accumulation and forest types, there are variations across the political landscape that make different solutions more helpful in one area than in another. And we don't typically analyze that.
Right, let me ask one last question, Ms. Fennell, my time's out. Ms. Fennell, I think performance metrics and accountability are vital, and thank you for being here. You note in your testimony that the Forest Service is beginning to improve their understanding of fuel treatment effectiveness. Do you have any other thoughts on how Congress can further enhance accountability on the agency in terms of both finding the most effective fuels reduction treatment for a given area and in maximizing the amount of effective fuels reduction projects it does each year?
Senator, I think it would be important to continue oversight in terms of the new efforts that they are putting into place regarding looking at the effectiveness of their fuel treatment program. We noted in 2007 that they did not have sufficient information by which to evaluate the effectiveness of the fuel treatment programs, and therefore had impacts in terms of how they would allocate the resources accordingly. Since that time, they have established a new system called the Fuel Treatment Effectiveness Monitoring Program. It is in process, and I think it would be important to continue oversight over it to see how it's progressing and whether it's getting the information that's needed to evaluate the effectiveness of fuel treatment program.
Thank you. I'm out of time.